Inner Light, where real talk meets radical truth. Today's guest, Candice Shepherd, doesn't come to sell your perfection. She comes to crack open the myths keeping you small. Author of Awaken and a bold disprover of subconscious programming. Candice has lived the unraveling and came out louder, clearer, and more honest. If you're done pretending everything's fine and ready to reclaim your truth, lean in. This is where the healing gets real. Welcome to the show, Candice. It's an honor to have you.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
Mhm. So, Candice, you say we are living by scripts we didn't write. What are some of the most common subconscious programs running people's lives today?
But I find a lot of it is I am unsafe. We are living in survival, constantly trying to make us safe, whether that's keeping everybody happy around us, or I am unworthy, not going for our goals and dreams and that potential we feel inside of us because at a deep cellular level, we don't believe that we're worthy.
Mm-hmm, right. And how can we begin to notice when it's not us but our programming speaking?
Yeah, I speak in the book about symptoms of a code or symptom of beliefs, and it's our emotional reactions to things. Um, you know, I I have an example in the book. Maybe you hear somebody slam a cupboard in the kitchen, and you're instantly frozen in place, uh, waiting for permission outside yourself to go in the kitchen or to see if you're safe. And so I just really pay attention to my emotional reactions to situations and find the part of me that's afraid or feeling unseen. And that's how I find those beliefs within myself.
And that moment of recognition, when you realize you're repeating someone else's beliefs, is where power begins to stir.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. There's a piece of us and our true power caged there, that's begging to be released, that's what the emotional reaction is, right? It's a piece of us trying to get our attention. Um, and and if we can grab our nervous system in time, we can have a different response and unleash that power.
Definitely. And you've talked about breaking free from people pleasing, spiritual bypassing, and survival codes. What was your own wake up call?
Repeated patterns in my relationship. I've been married for 19 years next week, and it just seemed like we were repeating the same patterns. And um, I would shrink and try to appease, anytime I felt like there was any type of disturbance in the relationship, and not feeling myself, but just trying to keep everybody around me happy. I was afraid I'm the glue. And so if I'm not holding everything together, everything's going to fall apart. And that wasn't, it's not a fun way to live. Once you recognize it, that there's actually me in there that could have a conversation if I would allow myself to let the emotions wash over me and dissipate. And so I really just started getting really in touch with the deep parts of me that were begging to be released, and recognizing that these patterns aren't the way that I want to live my life. They aren't the way I want to show up for my family and my husband and my marriage. And I just got really, really curious about who I really wanted to be and started following that.
That's amazing.
Thank you.
And how did that shift change how you show up in relationships, especially the closest ones?
It shifted everything. In my marriage, rather than having an emotional reaction and flying off the handle or shrinking, now I can sit with things and find the truth that's really wanting to be said and be brave enough to speak my truth. I have 3 teenage daughters, and so that brings up a lot of a lot of opportunity to choose different, right? I don't want to rule with an iron fist. That's not my truth, but that was the coding that I had. That was the program I was running. And when I finally made the decision that nothing means more to me than my relationship with my daughters, not their grades or what's happening, it's the relationship that's more important, then I could really get into the truth of how I wanted to respond, and hold myself rather than just repeating an old program that has been handed down after generation that doesn't really give the outcome that I'm looking for.
And those moments can feel messy, but sometimes chaos is the only thing loud enough to wake us up from quiet sufferings.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It can feel like chaos. And when you've built your relationships on people pleasing, it can, when you choose to not do that and you choose to live from your truth and have a different response, it feels like the world is going to end. It feels like one choice, one time of saying no, where you'd usually begrudgingly say yes, can unravel everything. But what I've noticed is it's allowed me to become closer to my children. Now I'm being honest with them, they're being honest with me. We're learning to regulate our nervous systems and just meet each other where we're at and find the truth and potential that's hidden under these beliefs that run us.
100%. And victimhood is often a survival response.
Mm.
How do we acknowledge our pain without staying trapped in the identity of it?
Oh, I love that. I love to touch on victimhood. I lived in victimhood mentality for years and didn't realize it, um, which led me to react to things in ways that I didn't want to and make things about me that weren't really about me. And it's a survival tactic. And recognizing that you're identifying as a victim is one of the core, I believe, one of the core facets of healing. Um, and where you can really start to unravel the truth and not wanting to repeat those patterns and just start showing up as the person you really are. I mean, I love to say, even though, I don't ever want to bypass somebody's pain. The things we've been through as humans is real, and the trauma and those, I've had my fair share, and it's not discounted at all. But we can feel those feelings that the traumas have given us and not victimize ourselves for the rest of our lives. And I use the phrase even though this happened to me, I'm going to choose to not let it run my life.
I love that.
Thank you.
What role does self compassion play in that shift from powerless to powerful?
Self-compassion is key as well. It's my book in the very first page or the very first chapter where I'm talking about codes and we're talking about recognizing that these patterns have run us. The most important thing is to not shame ourselves. That's kind of a human nature, I think, is to shame ourselves. And that's the first thing we need to stop and have some compassion for ourselves that, we might not like the outcome of what these codes have brought us. And we can feel the resentment maybe for what's put it there, but shaming it and shaming ourselves just stops any progress we can have. Every experience has brought us to where we are right now. And every version of ourselves deserves a seat at our table because we're all out here just doing the best we can with what we have and what's been dealt to us. And that shame and victimhood cycle just will just keep running forever until we choose to stop it.
And that's the nuance many miss. Healing doesn't mean denying the pain, it means refusing to let it define us.
Mhm. Absolutely.
And you bring a lot of humor and honesty into deep topics. Why is that blend important when we talk about trauma and truth?
For me, I mean, they say, laughter's the best medicine. And again, never to discount what somebody's been through. There's a huge honor and reverence for our traumas and our pains. But if we can find a way to giggle through whatever's bringing us down, find the light, it just makes it easier. It makes our nervous system feel safe when we're laughing. We feel safe and we can get to the root of things if we're looking at it more lightheartedly than heavily I-filled, grudging through it heavily. Um, and humor's just it's just always been something I love, I enjoy. I'm just kind of sarcastic by nature.
That's great. And have you seen that honesty actually accelerates healing for people who have been avoiding their story?
I do. I have, sitting with somebody who has never had a different perspective on it, right? They've been in that victimhood, shame cycle. And to be able to break it open, get it out of a loop and kind of look at it more, I like to think of it once you break a loop and you break this pattern, it's now more of a sacred spiral. It's not that you'll never revisit this place in your healing again, but you're going to revisit it with a new perspective. And so now we're spiraling in a healthy way, and not looping through the same pattern. And so if humor is a way that somebody can break that loop and start having a different perspective, then I'm all for it.
And there's something so liberating about hearing the raw truth without sugarcoating. It makes space for others to exhale and say, "Me too."
It really does. And that's with my book. Chapter 1 is a bit of a punch in the gut. I'll say, if you've never dug into subconscious beliefs and you've never looked at yourself and your patterns, then it can be very activating, but it's necessary, right? Taking that step to look at what's running my life and how can I see it from a different perspective and start healing it.
Definitely. And if someone's listening and feels stuck, like they've outgrown their old identity but don't know who they really are yet, where do they begin?
That's that's the perfect space to be. I feel like especially that's kind of who I've written this book for. It's there's so many of us out there that feel like we're meant for more. That know we're not just here to work 9 to 5 and feed the system and keep going, but that's what we've been taught. That's what we've been trained. That's what's been programmed inside us. But there's something internal that tells us there's more. And I think the first step is trusting that, believing that more than the lies that our nervous system can tell us to keep us safe, knowing that you are here for more and acknowledging that is the first step.
100%. And what's one belief they can question today that could crack something open?
Oh, there's so many. That's a good one. I really deep dive into the I am unworthy. Um, because that is one that's pretty blanket that I find out there. That I've come into, everybody has some version of their I'm unworthy. And so we have this potential burning inside of us, knowing that we're here for more. But on top of that is this subconscious belief that we're unworthy. And I would just invite people to think about that. Worthy of what? And to who? Whose version of worthy are you running? Because if you really start to think of it that way, it kind of, to me, starts to sound silly. Just like I'm not enough. That's another one. Who's enough? Enough to whom? And it just starts to sound silly. And you can trace so many of your patterns back to those two beliefs. And then you can look at it, well, who's worthy and whose version of worthy or enough am I even chasing? And start to unravel that.
And sometimes all it takes is the right question at the right time. And suddenly the script starts to fall apart in the best way.
Yes. Yes.
So, Candace reminds us you don't have to stay bound to old blueprints, inherited stories, or silent sufferings. You can rewrite the rules, you can reclaim your voice, and you can return to who you were before the programming. So, if today stirred something, follow it, deconstruct it, and rise. Not as who the world taught you to be, but as you really are.